All right, so welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to sync up video and audio together, as well as having multiple cameras and how to set it up so you can switch between them while you're editing. And I want to do this before we get into doing basic video edits, because if you are doing a higher quality recording, you're probably going to have maybe your audio separate, or you're going to have multiple microphones going or multiple cameras going, and it's important to set all that up first before you get into editing the video, because once you've edited the video, bringing in audio afterwards, it's just not going to work. So let's first figure out how to sync different pieces of video and audio together and do it directly in Premiere. So the first thing you can do is expand these audio waveforms. I've already imported one of my video files, and let me go ahead and import my other one. The other one is actually a screen recording. So it's a screen recording on my computer, and I also recorded audio that way. So once you expand these a little bit and zoom out, you can start to see where things might line up. You can see similar wave patterns here, and you can probably get pretty close by just dragging. Maybe let's zoom in on one big spot, like right here where I clapped at the beginning. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Drag over, drag over. Yeah, that's pretty close. Let's see if I can move it any closer. So yeah, so right about there, that is gonna be synced. It's gonna have the audio on both, and if I played them back, you would hear the double audio at the same exact time. So that's one way to do it, just do it manually. And for this one, it was easy because there's one video file from a camera, one video file from my computer. I had them recording both the same exact amount of time. If I find where they sync at the beginning, they should be synced the entire way. Now, if you have a lot of files, this is gonna be very tedious to do it manually. So let me show you now how to do it within the software. So let's say I brought in the two video files and they're not synced properly. You can see they're out of line here, but what you can do is you actually select the clips and say synchronize. And there are a few different ways you can synchronize. Clip start or clip end, which would be if they both started recording at this exact same time, or both stopped recording at the exact same time, and that's very rarely the case unless you have some sort of electronic trigger or something. Timecode is another way, but you'd have to have your different cameras all synced up through timecode, which is possible and is probably the best solution, but most people aren't going to have that. So the only other option is through audio. And so you can choose which track you want to have the main synchronization go through, but let's go audio track 1 for the first video clip, and let's click OK, and let's see how it does. And I say that because it doesn't always work. Premiere doesn't always sync things very well. So let's take a look. You can see that it actually did really well. See, it's pretty close, and maybe it's a couple nudges over or something like that you have to do. But now that it's all synced up together, you can then create a multicam. And how you do that is by selecting the two clips, right-clicking, and nesting them. So you can name this multicam, that's what I usually call it. And now that they're nested, you can see they're on one track. They're both in there, and you can actually choose between which of them is showing, but what you need to do next after you nest it is right-click it, go to Multicam, click Enable. And so now that nested clip is actually like containing both of those video clips, and you can switch back and forth between them. And you can see this because it says MC1, multi-camera 1. And the best way to actually see how to do this is to hit Command-Shift-0, which actually brings up the multicam, or it should. Let me see what's going on here. I can change it over to multicam by hitting this little gear here. My shortcut didn't work for some reason. But you can see here, if I make this a little bigger, it's showing 4 cameras. And as I play this video back, I can click to change which angle that's actually showing. Or you can say record. And as you play back, it'll record, and you can see it's kind of selecting which one in red. And then if I zoom in to my timeline, you can see it changed to each different camera when I clicked on it and I was doing the edit. So theoretically, what you would do is you would set up your multicam like this, you would play it back, and as it was playing back, you could click between the different angles to change what angle is showing in your timeline. And then once you stop playing, it'll have all that information in there. Another way you can do it is actually just using number keys. So if you say, I want the first angle there, I want the second angle here, I hit 2. Let's go back to the first angle, hit 1. And so you can do it that way as well, either while you're playing back or when your timeline is paused, and that way you can get through all your different angles that way. So being able to do this right in Premiere is super helpful, because the alternative would be to have all the video things on different tracks, and then you're having to cut them all over, and then that's how you're switching angles. But if you just properly set up the multicam and have the audio synced between all the different angles, you can just go through hitting the number keys, doing your multicam much quicker that way. So that's one of the best things about actually taking the time to set up multicam. One of the last things I want to do is show you how to mute and select channels on the audio, because that's really important as well. So for this video specifically, let me go to the section we were just at here. You can see there's a bunch of different audio options that we can use, and you can see they're kind of at different levels. So if I go ahead and click mute on this option, I will only be using audio from my camera. And you can see there's 2 different options, because the left channel looks a little lower than the right channel. So if you go ahead and go to audio channels, I can say, actually that right channel is the channel that I want. So let's make the left also show the right channel. And you can preview them down here and hear what they sound like to see which microphone it is or what sounds the best. But if I click OK, now you can see that the waveforms match each other, because I basically just took the right channel and made it dual mono. So that's basically all I would do to this to get the best sound. I would still leave my sound for my computer recording, even though it's a backup and it's not the best sound. I would just either mute it, or I would right click it and uncheck enable so it's disabled, and then that audio won't play. But I'm not deleting it in case something gets out of whack or out of sync later. I'm not just turning the volume all the way down. You can just disable it, mute the channel, do something like that, and then make sure you have your left and right channels correct on your main recording. So that covered a lot of stuff. It covered how to sync your video and audio together. It covered how to multicam, how to play with audio channels a little bit, and then you still need to adjust the audio gain level to a proper volume. But if you're shooting with multiple cameras, multiple sets of microphones, this is the way to actually sync them together. And if I'm using a bunch of cameras and a bunch of pieces of audio, and there are a bunch of different files, I'll actually use a third-party program called Plural Eyes from Red Giant. And that does a really good job of taking in a lot of information and being able to set it up in a multicam. And so I highly recommend paying for that if you're doing a lot of multicam shoots with a bunch of different audio sources. But for basic things like this, where you keep the cameras rolling the same amount of time, you can see all the audio, you could either manually sync it and then drop it into a multicam, or trust the software, try to synchronize a few times and get it to actually do it itself. So that wraps up this video. In the next video, we'll actually go into basic editing. So the tools I would use to get to the first draft of a video, and we'll go from there. So see you in that one.